We're here in Western North Carolina, and I'm with Bryan. Bryan is a local forager. What are we gonna find today?
Today we're going out for morels. We're in a big tulip poplar forest. We're gonna hopefully find some. Let's go see what we can do.
The United States is a vast and diverse region with many various edible plants. 50 different states, 50 different foraged meals. This is Foraging the 50.
All right, here's one.
Oh, nice.
Our first morel of the day.
Awesome.
Yeah, I believe this is one of the small morels. They call tulip morels or diminutive morels, and they don't get a whole lot bigger than this.
Oh, that's a disappointment.
Yeah.
Good flavor though.
Great flavor, and there's a lot of them around right now. So yeah, we could totally harvest this one and take it with us to cook.
So I see that this mushroom right here is pretty close to this tulip poplar tree.
Yeah, we usually find them growing around tulip poplars, especially old big tulip poplars. Morels, it's kind of ambiguous whether they're mycorrhizal or whether they're decomposers. We're still learning a lot about them and the different species of them. But yeah, I have a feeling these are actually mycorrhizal because you'll often find them growing in line with trees, and you can kind of figure out where the root might be and hypothesize that this morel is connected with this big tulip poplar tree and then follow lines of them back to the tree often.
No way, that's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe we'll see some of those.
Makes me want to kind of see. But anyway, okay, let's harvest this one and then let's try to find more.
All right.
Oh, so last time we talked a lot about like the mycorrhizal aspects of this species, but can you tell us how to identify this species?
Sure. So morels are a really easy one to identify. It's one of the only mushrooms you're going to find around in the springtime, number one. So timing is key. And they grow in a variety of different habitats. They have these really deep ridges in them, which can be different sizes, different shapes. It almost looks like a brain.
It definitely does.
And then when you cut them open, you're going to be able to notice that it's totally hollow inside. So there's nothing in there, there's no wispy bits. If you can cut the stem open, these are tiny ones, but that stem is going to be totally hollow.
Totally hollow, and also I think worth noting, the cap is attached to the stem. It's not,
yes.
Yeah, not free floating.
Yes, we do have one species as a half-free morel,
Half-free.
which where the stem will be a bit detached from the cap, but most of the morels around here are going to be attached totally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good identifier.
Great.
Yeah, can't wait to cook this up.
All right, me neither. Bryan Bramlett inspires me to better utilize the food around me. The first time I met him, he was eating turnip greens and kidney. There is no way to not feel happy around Bryan. He brings such levity to all of his doings. So what got you into foraging?
Well, it was initially traveling down to Costa Rica about 10 years ago. I ended up on a beach and I heard the sound of this large something plopping behind me. And I turned around and went and walked over, and there was mangoes all over the ground with one bite taken out, and there was monkeys up in the trees throwing them down. And at that point I was like, whoa, there's like free mangoes everywhere. I started harvesting them with my girlfriend at the time and ate those mangoes for breakfast, and it was like done deal from there. Got obsessed ever since.
That's a good introduction to foraging, for
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
But look at that.
Ah.
Yeah, what we were looking for.
This is it.
Yeah. So, we were looking for this. Now I know what it is, but let's tell them what this is.
So this is Japanese knotweed. This is considered to be one of the most invasive plants in the world. And it's also a really tasty edible, and it's at prime time to forage it right now.
What makes this prime time for foraging this species right now?
So there's kind of a short window of about 1 month when you can forage the meristems, which are these tender tips that are emerging from the ground. And they don't stay tender for very long. They become really, really large woody plants over time. And so this is the time to harvest them for various different culinary uses, like making sorbets, making pickles, and doing all kinds of other stuff with them.
Okay. What is the scientific name?
Rhaenutria japonica.
Rhaenutria japonica.
That's the current scientific name. There's about 3 of them.
Okay.
The current most recent.
And what other sorts of things can we look out for as far as like identification characteristics?
That's a great question. Okay, so we have alternate leaves. We have really obvious nodes. And most of the time it's going to have this red splotching. That's pretty obvious. Sometimes it will have a much lighter lime green color to it. But yeah, it's always going to be growing in really large colonies like this. It grows rhizomatously underground, so there's all kinds of tubers, and that's where it gets its name from, knotweed. It's like these big knotty roots under there. But for these purposes, it's going to have these shoots, always a reddish hue to them. And also if we snap one,
Oh.
yeah, has a cool crunch to it. And it's going to be hollow inside. So that's one of the main ID characteristics. And yeah, the way to know when to harvest them, I think, is really important, because you hear a lot of people talk about you should only harvest them when they're like under a foot tall or under 7 inches or whatever it is. And I've harvested them that were literally over my head before. But it's just about finding the really tender meristems, those super soft parts that you can easily snap off and hear that sound.
I wonder if I can try to do that. Let's see if I get as good of a pop. So let's see. Oh!
Yeah.
Now you like to peel them?
Yeah, so if I was going to eat this raw, which you can totally do, I'd definitely recommend peeling it. It takes away a lot of the funky flavor. And it just makes it really soft to eat. Sour, eh?
Sour. It's like rhubarb-esque. It's like in the rhubarb family.
It is, indeed. Yeah, it's one of my favorite families, the buckwheat rhubarb knotweed family. It just grows so prolifically, and it's one of those plants that you basically can't get rid of, for better or for worse.
Now, just as we were sitting here, I found another surprise of the spring.
Ah, nice find.
So this is a good warning to check yourself for ticks. Apart from its edibility, what ways do you consider this to be used, or what ways are it used?
So it's a really, really potent medicinal plant too. Usually the root is used in medicine, and it is considered to be one of the highest sources of resveratrol in the entire plant kingdom, which is like a sort of age reversal type compound that has all kind of anti-inflammatory and neurological helpful benefits to it. But it's also one of the #1 treatments for treating Lyme disease. So funny enough, we find one of the first ticks of the day while we're amongst the knotweed. But yeah, super useful in that regard, and highly, highly anti-inflammatory. So great thing to get into the diet this way, or to come dig the roots and be able to use it in tinctures or teas.
Is it safe for everybody to eat and ingest, you think?
Good question. Like everything that kind of has that high oxalate type content to it, where it tastes really, really lemony, we don't want to eat a ton of it raw. Have I ever seen anybody get sick from eating too much of it? No.
Yeah.
But yeah, something to be aware of there. And then also, one thing I want to mention is harvesting knotweed from urban places can be a little bit questionable, because knotweed hyperaccumulates heavy metals.
Okay, yeah.
And I like to come to places that are pretty remote off of roads. We're at the top of a mountainside right now, so this is a very pure stand of knotweed. But just something to think about if you're like in Central Park or something, you see some knotweed growing there.
Probably not a good idea.
Maybe not the best.
All right. Well, let's find our next plant, pokeweed.
All right.
Bryan is a genuine forager that aspires to teach the world to reconnect to the land in a way that many people no longer do. North Carolina is a state that features so many ecosystems. From coastal wetlands to mountainous oak forests, it is truly a magical place. Bryan invited me to forage outside of Asheville, and it turned out to be one of the most spectacular places I've visited. It's no wonder this place has attracted so many foragers. So, I can see that you love foraging in the natural world. Can you explain a little bit about what draws you to this?
Sure. Well, I'm not super into cooking, but when I forage stuff, I feel very connected to my food in a different way.
Yeah.
And then I'm really into nutrition and eating properly. And like a lot of people know, forage foods are some of the most nutritious foods that you can possibly get, super duper in season. It keeps me really connected with the different seasons in a very, very deep way. And it just brings me a ton of joy to connect with this beautiful creation and be able to see these foods that haven't been tampered with or domesticated, and put those into my body. And I feel like when we put those really tough foods into our body, it makes us stronger people in a lot of ways. So
I think that's awesome reason to keep foraging.
Yeah.
And spreading the word. And I'm sure also out here you have the farm and you get the mix of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. It's really fascinating to see the mix of the domesticated vegetables and the things that are just growing wild and easy and free that I don't have to tend to.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, it's just a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Well, let's see if there's pokeweed up here.
All right. All right, so this is one of my favorite plants to harvest this time of year. This is an incredible shoot vegetable. It's native to this area, and it's called poke, or pokeweed, Phytolacca americana. This plant needs to be cooked properly to be able to eat it. Do not ever eat it raw. We're gonna show you how to cook it later. But right now, maybe we can go over some identification.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So it comes out of the ground, oftentimes in colonies. This is just one specimen right here. It's early in the season still. You'll usually see this red coloration. Unlike the knotweed, there's no notching in it, but it also has alternate leaves. These are really simple leaves and almost have a bluntness at the end of them.
They almost look like spinach.
Yeah, they could kind of look like spinach for sure. And the leaves are typically what's eaten, but the shoot is actually the most incredible part of it, in my opinion, which is what I really love to eat. People will often say that you should only pick it when it's a small size, kind of like the knotweed, but the thing to know is to pick it when the stem is really, really soft. So we can go ahead and snap this stem. And notice how it just snaps really easily. I'm not having to fight it or anything. That means you have a good shoot of pokeweed. And once it's cooked, it's one of the most delicious vegetables that you can possibly get.
I definitely agree, and I think that we should go up to the kitchen up there and try to make it look good.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
All right, so it's time to cook up things that we have harvested and foraged. And right now we have poke that needs to go in some boiling water to be able to be rendered edible. We don't want to eat this stuff raw, ever. Some will say that the red skin denotes the toxins that are in poke. So I just usually peel all of my shoot vegetables anyway. I feel like the texture is usually better. But it can be a personal preference thing too. But yeah, I like to peel into where they look like that. Nice and smooth. Get off that red. Especially if they're red, it's just a safer thing to go ahead and peel them. From there, we are going to fry some morels. We have some bear fat to fry the morels in, so that should be really tasty. And we also have this wild onion, which will flavor the morels really nicely. So we'll chop this up and put that in with the morels.
Great, I'm really excited to taste it.
All right, let's get started.
So you've foraged morels in multiple states, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you notice a taste difference at all?
That's a good question. I've done the burn morels in California. They're really good. The morels out here on the East Coast, also really good. We have 3 species here, so we can taste test and see which ones taste different. But yeah, for me, they all taste really, really good. There's subtle flavor notes between certain ones. This right here is a black morel, Murchella angusticeps. This is exclusive to the East Coast. Great flavor. And then we have these, which are diminutivas, or what they call tulip morels, also really, really good. And then this is some kind of small black morel. There's a lot of different species of them. Yeah. So yeah, there are definitely flavor differences. Whether I can taste a difference or not, maybe.
Do your local people here, or all around Asheville, is this like a common thing for people to get morels?
Yeah, very, very much so. People are going crazy for them right now. So I'm cutting these morels, cutting them in half. Especially the big ones, it's good to cut them up. I mean, that has a bunch of dirt in it. So we can wash that out. We want to have a nice mouthfeel with our morels. Mm-hmm. And also, there can be bugs inside. So it's good to cut them up, clean them out a little bit. So it's really, really important to cook your morels. They're not one you want to mess with and try to eat raw. It can make you really, really sick. So cook them, and not only cook them, but cook them pretty thoroughly and make them actually crispy to make sure they're fully cooked all the way through. That's another reason it's good to cut them. You can cook them whole, but you just got to make sure they're really well cooked. It's also important to not consume alcohol when you're eating morels. Some people have reactions to that, so that's also something to think about. So enjoy a nice kombucha or something as you have your morels.
Nice kombucha.
If you must.
or a Coke, since you're wearing.
I don't recommend the Coke. So I'm putting the poke back into water to let it boil for a few more minutes, just to kind of wash off those toxic chemicals that we don't want. A lot of people will talk about needing to boil poke 3 times, and for a beginner who's never eaten it before, that's probably a good thing, just to make sure that you can tolerate it. But I'm usually boiling it twice, and the second time is pretty short boil, and then dumping off that water. Always discarding the water, don't mess with the water. And then after that, we can fry it up like you would any other vegetable. It's gonna be delicious. So right here we have Japanese knotweed pickles, and these are really simple. This is just knotweed shoots that have been peeled and put into a saltwater brine. And they make a really incredible pickle. They're super crunchy. It takes away the mucilaginous quality of them, takes away that slimy feeling, takes away some of the sourness, makes them really, really delicious. So we're gonna cut these up and add them to our meal.
How long have they been fermented for?
These have actually been sitting for about a year at this point.
Wow.
So these are starting to develop some really cool notes. But after 2 to 3 days, they start to really get crunchy and delicious.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm about to pour off the rest of this poke water.
And then how long are you gonna fry those in the pan?
Probably fry these for, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes or so. Just enough to give them a little browning.
Okay.
Kind of sear them.
I know some people cook their poke and it's like still mushy.
Yeah, this will probably be pretty mushy-ish. I don't know, I like to have it a little more crunch if possible. There we go. Cool.
That looks excellent.
So what we have here is a knotweed sorbet, and this is really simple. This is Forager Chef's recipe of peeled knotweed shoots, apples, a little bit of starch to hold it together, and some maple syrup.
Wow.
Dress it up with some violet flowers, and we should try some. It's very interesting tasting.
I'm excited. Let's do the main course first. All right, I'm gonna taste your food. Let's do poke and morels all in one. I can't poke the poke. All right, here we go. Morels and poke together. That is an excellent meal. Absolutely.
Glad you like it.
Yep. Next bite is gonna have a little bit of that Japanese knotweed, but why don't you try some?
Appreciate it. Super good.
Well, I wanna set these down and I wanna taste the sorbet.
All right. Dig in.
All right.
Curious to see what you think.
All right, Alan Burgo. Here we go. Oh, the texture is amazing.
Very good.
The flavor is so unique.
Extremely unique. How would you describe it?
I don't know. You can definitely taste the apple. And the texture is like pudding or something, or like really like frozen pudding. I don't know. Yeah.
And very earthy aftertone too, from the knotweed.
Yeah. How much would you say knotweed is in there represented?
That's about half knotweed.
Wow.
For sure. Yeah, pretty high proportion. I've done some too that was just straight knotweed and maple syrup, which was also good. But the apple like sort of balances it out nicely. Yeah.
I could eat that all the time. Dude, I had a great time out there today with you, and you showed me a lot about this beautiful landscape. If I come back to Asheville again, would you take me out and show me some more foods?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. We'll see you guys next time on Foraging the 50. Oh, I didn't see you there. I was just having a little joke with the blue spruce behind me. Never mind how weird that is. If you liked today's video, please do us a favor and like and subscribe and hit that notification bell on the bottom. And if you're really feeling like helping us out, please send this content to a friend. Thank you so much for watching. You have a great day and keep foraging. Yeah!